this video, we're going to focus on converting artwork to kind of the more specialty type stitches. And those are going to be the ones that are located down here, like it starts with applique. Even though applique is pretty a standard thing, it's kind of a complex way that it goes about creating it. And it's pretty cool. But you've got applique, auto stipple, cross stitch, a cross stitch outline. That's the artwork. And then you have these specialty things like lace and cut work and auto lace, and it's all really neat stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look. I got these basic shapes up here. All of them except for this one are coming from the custom shapes. I did this one so I could show one of the tools and how you would utilize it. But I'm going to come here to this first one, and let's just look at applique first. If I convert this to applique, you'll notice that it changes and it has a satin stitch border, and I can take any shape. It could be even a running stitch. As long as it's a closed shape, it works great for applique. And the big rules with applique are you need it to be a larger size area. You don't want it to be a really small piece, but converting it to applique automatically gives you a placement stitch, a tack down stitch, and a finish stitch or a border stitch. And you can come in and change the different settings. Like you can go from a satin to a blanket stitch and hit apply, and you can see that it gives you a blanket stitch. There's a few different things you can do. You can do a motif. If you want to do a motif, you can border that applique with a motif. And there'll be other lessons on working with applique. It's just knowing that you can take any kind of closed shape. Any of these shapes I can convert. Maybe not this one, but any of these I could convert to applique. It needs to be kind of an open silhouette style design, and you can convert it over easily. And the next thing is we have stipple. So I can take this and I can convert it to a stipple stitch, and you'll see that it does that. And one of the things I want to point out is that anytime you want to fill a shape with stipple, you can change the different densities and stuff like that. But a lot of times I'll come in and copy and paste, and I will convert to a run stitch outline at the end to give it a clean, crisp edge. I could even convert that to a steel stitch, and that way I have stipple with a nice clean border to it. And let me select this stipple and just show you, like, density is something you would change quite often, and you can see that by doing that, you can see the shapes that it creates. Now the cool thing is, and more recently, you have the ability to change the random factor, and the random factor can be pretty cool. It can really change the look. You can see how it's really straightening out here. And if I go all the way down to, like, let's say 5, you can see it's very uniform, and you can get a whole different look for your stipple. And I actually really like that. So that's how you can convert to a stipple. You can change little things in here like stitch length, and that does affect the look too. Density, stitch length, and the randomness factor. So it's kind of a fun thing to play with. Now let's go to the next shape. I'm going to select it, and this time I'm going to convert this to a cross stitch. So if I convert this to a cross stitch, you can see that it kind of has an edge to it that is not very clean. Let me copy it and paste it, and the icon right next to it is called a cross stitch outline. And you can see that, I mean, you could utilize it as a border, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. What I can do instead is just select this one and convert it to a cross stitch outline. And I didn't delete the first one. So let me just select that and move it over to the side. And that's the cross stitch outline. It's just doing a line of cross stitch as opposed to filling the cross stitch in. And you can you can change different settings of the cross stitch. You can play with that, like the size of it. If I go to 5, it's going to be a much bigger pattern there. Overlap, if I wanted to overlap some, I can have it overlap. That's a whole millimeter, so that's quite a bit. But you can have it overlap some, and you can kind of see the overlapping in here. It's kind of hard to see, but you definitely notice it when you stitched it out. Go to 0 here. You can have it repeat a couple times, so it can be a thicker cross stitch. Different things you can do with cross stitch there. And let's go ahead and select this object, and this time what we're going to do is take a look at whitework lace. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to click on this whitework lace, and notice that when I do, it gives me this satin border that's using a special type of open ends. And now it wants me, you can see on my cursor I have a little black dot there. It's wanting me to put in angle lines. Not really angle lines though. What they are bridge lines. And these will actually stitch out, and you'll see when I get done here. And I'm trying to be pretty uniform here so that it kind of looks the same on both sides of this. So what happens when I right mouse click twice, it's going to put these little bridges in here. And these are, this is meant to be a design that will remove the fabric underneath here. And these are freestanding. And there'll be more videos on whitework lace and stuff like that. But how this works is you get a placement line, and what you do is you cut out the fabric inside of here. This is the tack down. So you have placement and you have the tack down, and then it will kind of tighten up that edge right there. But you will have like a wet and gone underneath of here. And by doing that, when you put these stitches over here, it'll have something to stitch onto, that wet and gone. And you'll see that will already be cut out. You would have already cut it out yourself with some scissors, and to remove the fabric right here. And then it's just going to stitch these on, these little bridges, and those are going to show up. Those are going to be like decorative elements in your design that you're going to see. And it's a really cool, it's a form of lace. We call it whitework lace. And it's a really neat little feature. So there'll be other videos. There's a lot of modifying you can do to those. So you'll see some of that later on. So let's go ahead and select this one. The next one over there is cut work. And if I come into the cut work, you'll see that I can do the same thing and put in these bars here. And these will stitch out. I'm not going to be as picky with these. But the difference with this is if I go to stitch it out, you'll see that I still have that placement, and I can cut the fabric out on the inside of this shape. And then it's going to do these stitches to kind of tack down the fabric along the edge. And then it's going to do these stitches, and these are freestanding as well. It's just they're not as thick as like when we were doing the whitework lace. And so it gives it a different look. There's no doubt about it. It will look much different. This is using more of a steel stitch, whereas the other one is utilizing a much different look in that satin area. You'll see here that it's kind of doing these bars back and forth. This is meant to be in areas that are going to be a little bit longer, and you need a lot more structure here. Because it's doing these lines back and forth, and then it's going to go over the top of it. It's really making a strong bridge there. So it's just a little bit different. So let's take a look at the next one. And like I said, there's going to be other videos for the properties and modifying those. This is just about converting. So the next one is you have auto lace. So if I click auto lace, it's going to turn that shape into a lace design. And this is really cool. I'm going to I'm going to come back here and convert these other ones back into artwork. And the reason I'm going to do that is just makes it simpler for doing these slow redraws. So if I come in here, you'll see that the first thing it's going to do is the inside of this cloud. This is going to be stitched directly onto a water-soluble stabilizer. So like Floriani Wet and Gone, for instance. So it's going to do this pattern here, and then it's going to go around the edge and do a border. And this is going to really lock those stitches together so that nothing falls apart when you wash away the stabilizer. And then it's doing this little satin border to give it a nice clean edge. And so it's really neat working with this auto lace tool, and you could put something on top of this now and it becomes a freestanding design. So make sure you watch other videos on that if you're interested in doing some lace. So the next thing is we have this mesh steel down here. And the mesh steel was created so that you could create your own bridge lines. Like when we were doing this white work lace, I'm talking about these bridges right here. Basically what this mesh steel tool is the ability to create these bridge lines. So if you wanted to manually do this, you could. So in this example, I'm going to come in here and I'm not going to select the border. I'm just going to select these interior pieces and convert these to mesh steel. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. If I do a slow redraw here, you can see that it's doing those lines and it's coming back over the top of it, creating a nice solid base. And so if I was creating my own design, if I wanted to create my own whitework lace design, but I needed to really customize it, I can use that mesh steel for those bridges. And by bridges, I mean these right here. And this will allow me to actually really work with how wide they are, the density, everything. So I would probably lighten this density up so it's more like the other. And you can see that right there. So it looks a little bit more like that. It allows you to do your own custom bridges. And this is a good freestanding steel stitch. You can use it for doing just regular lace type work. It's as long as you combine it and you close it, it'll be a freestanding stitch. Can be used for that. Okay, let's select this one now. We're going to come down here and we're going to choose this auto shadow work. And auto shadow work is a really neat, it's a neat tool and it's a neat process. And again, let me come in here. I'm going to convert some of these back into artwork just to make it easier to show this here. So I have this heart here, and this is what it's doing. This is how this is kind of shadow work is when you have stitches that go behind a fabric, a sheer fabric, a fabric you can see through, and it creates this nice little muted color behind the fabric. And the trick is that you need those stitches to be behind the fabric, and then you need to lock them to the fabric, if that makes sense. So how this works is you hoop some stabilizer, some Wet and Gone stabilizer, or tacky is even better. You get some of that water soluble stabilizer and you stitch this first part right here directly onto the water soluble material. And this is a little grid pattern that goes back and forth. These are the stitches that are going to show up underneath the fabric. So once these stitches are done, you're going to lay your fabric down, and you're going to lay your fabric on top of these stitches. and you're going to make sure you tack it down, and then it's going to do this little border right here. And this little border stitch is going to now lock the fabric and these base stitches together so that now they are actually going to become one. Now the heart that stitches out first is going to be attached to the fabric because of this little run stitch here. So it's a pretty neat little way of doing it, and you can change that. You can come in. I need to get rid of this. You can modify this to where if you wanted to, you could take this and make it like a steel stitch that's a little bit wider, and that way it'll really grab it well. So you can have this on top of the fabric and this behind it. It's a good idea to do, and you can make it even wider as well. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. So the next one it's called the Auto Shadow Work Plus. And what this does is it keeps the original here. So let's go ahead and click it, and let's do, it basically, it'll keep whatever you had selected. So if you wanted to have other stitches, like if this was a stitch pattern, you could have it keep that, and then it will add that to it. So you still have that shape. It's basically what you're getting. It's still doing the same thing. It's still giving you that pattern and a run stitch after, but then it's also letting you keep whatever it was that you had selected to begin with. So it doesn't change it or convert it to it. It copies it and then turns it into that shadow work. So those are the kind of more specialty things, but there's two more that I want to show you. And I'm going to go to the next page here. And I brought these up. These are monograms, and I did break them apart. If you watch the text videos, you'll know how to break stuff apart. But the two tools I'm going to focus on in here are auto convert tools as well. And we're going to look at this auto nap blocker, and we're also going to look at this auto lace background. So I'm going to take this out, this right here, and I'm going to convert it to a steel stitch. And this would be something you could put, imagine putting it on a towel. So you want to put this monogram on a towel, but you need to knock those stitches down. Or if you're doing like a beanie hat, this is something you would use for that too. So I can select this, and I can come up here and click on the auto nap blocker, and it's going to do, it automatically put those stitches first. That it's going to do this little pattern, and that's going to lock that nap material down so that it won't poke up and through, so that you get a nice clean surface to do your monogram on, and it'll make sure that the stitches don't show through. So that's a really nice little feature to have. On the second one here, I'm going to show you the auto lace background. So I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to turn this one into a steel stitch. So I basically, let's do a mesh fill instead. That might be a little bit more fun to do. And let's do a wave pattern, and let's make sure that it's a little unique here. Hit OK, and I'm going to change this color to a lighter blue. I do need it to stitch before the letter, so I'm just going to resequence that really quick. So you can see in 3D view, I have that here. I'm going to select it, and now I'm going to choose the auto lace background. Now, auto lace background is going to throw a freestanding lace pattern behind whatever you have selected. So if I click on this, it's going to come up and say, okay, well, what kind of a border do you want to do, and how far away from the edge do you want it to be? I have it set at 10. Default, I believe, was like 15. I can just outline the border like in the same shape that it already is, or I can choose a shape. I can choose a square, rounded square, diamond, triangle, hexagon, anything that I want to do here, I can do that. But let's go ahead and just choose this outline border and hit OK. And you'll see what it's done is it created this pattern that's a freestanding lace pattern, and it's giving you all of the basically what you got with the auto lace, but it's doing it in the shape of what you had selected, and it's giving you all those stitching all those first, and then it's going to stitch the design that you had. So you can see that that color was very similar. So let me come in here and choose like this green right here, and you can see that it does show up on top of it, and you can see that it basically creates a web for you that allows you to turn that design into a freestanding lace design. So now I just stitch it out, this entire design right here, onto freestanding, well, not freestanding, but water soluble stabilizer, so that it can be a freestanding design. So I can wash away that stabilizer and all that's left are the stitches. So those are two other ones that are pretty popular. Let's go ahead and take this fill right here and delete it. And let me go in and select this one and go over to the auto lace. And you can see that I could choose to have this more oval in shape, and I could choose the 10 border and hit OK, and you'll see that it creates that oval shape, but it puts it behind the other stitches. It's a really neat feature. You can learn more about it in other videos on how to use the auto lace background or the auto nap for changing settings. But those are the other things that you can just take something and convert it, or automatically apply something to the background. Like in this case, we did for auto nap blocker for this design. It automatically does it, automatically positions it in the order it needs to be. It's a pretty cool feature. And or the auto lace background. So there's a lot of things we covered in this video, a lot of things that you can do with kind of more specialty features, and you can learn more about those tools in individual videos based on those tools. So we'll see you next time.